Let's talk about creating pins that get clicks. Clicks are the only metric that really matter to me when it comes to my Pinterest progress. While it's fun to see monthly viewers and impressions going up in the right direction, if those views and impressions don't contribute to increased clicks, then there's no point in the effort I've put in on Pinterest. I want to be careful to spend my time creating pins that get clicked more than anything else. We might not experience the same kind of viral impressions and reach on Pinterest when we focus on clickable pins over savable pins, but for me, that's where it's most worth investing my time. When it comes to creating pins that get clicked, it's important to start with our consideration around user intent. So people come to Pinterest to find ideas, inspiration, and sometimes instruction. They come to Pinterest when they are planning, when they are excited, and generally when they want to explore concepts that have a visual aspect. Now, we've talked about niche on Pinterest before, and there are niches that don't have strongly visual aspects that can do well, but it's important to remember that the user doesn't often come to Pinterest to engage with those niches that don't have a visual aspect. Sometimes as we create our content, we can kind of draw in that reader that doesn't be searching for a visual aspect, but generally that's what the user comes to Pinterest for is visual engagement on the platform. So it's important to consider that. Next, it's important to consider that if you are only offering the reader that visual aspect of the niche that they're looking for, it's very hard to get a click. So, for example, if you are pinning in nail ideas, okay, fingernail painting ideas, people will come to Pinterest and they will search for nail ideas. And if you are just pinning a ton of the images themselves, plain images of fingernails, you might find that people save your images over clicking them. Let's look at this right now. Let's look at Christmas. It's December when I'm recording this video. Christmas nail designs. Okay, so here we have two distinct kinds of pins visible on the screen. The first one tells me with the pin that there are more more nail ideas on the other side of this pin. If I click, I will see 33 cute Christmas nail ideas. This one here, this is actually a sponsored one, so let's focus on this one. This one here literally shows me the idea that I might take to the nail salon to get them to recreate for me. And I don't need to click on this one to utilize the idea. Now, underneath here, the title says 25 ombre Christmas nail designs to try in 2024. There's a good chance that somebody looking for ombre Christmas nail ideas would click through there to see the other ones. But you will find as you save your content on Pinterest that when you present only the visual idea versus the visual idea and the push towards helping the user understand that there's more on the other side for them, you will find the ones that aren't just a plain image tend to perform better for click-throughs over time. And so my first instruction for creating pins that generate clicks is put a text overlay on your pins. There is nothing wrong with pinning the plain image. In fact, I think that it's important to pin the plain image, but for every single blog post, major idea or minor idea that you put out there on Pinterest, include a version with the text overlay. When you're pinning the plain version, make sure you consider the title underneath and how it can be utilized to demonstrate to people that there is more for them on the other side of the pin. For example, with this one here, I would not just put red and white ombre Christmas nails underneath this pin. I wouldn't put that as the title for this plain image. They need to know there's more for them. It's worth clicking on. When you are considering your text overlay on your pins, okay, back to text overlay, it is extremely important to make sure that your text is easily readable. We have touched on this so many times in this course, but it is so crucial that we're going to talk about it again, because now we're talking about it in the context of pin creation, and it fits into this whole idea of creating pins that are easily clickable. Make sure that your words are readable and that the second the reader scrolls by the pin on the page, they understand what they've read. Now, in nails, the person is seeing the picture of nails. They're probably immediately understanding that the blog post is about nails. They're seeing that they're Christmas nails. They're probably even immediately understanding that they're Christmas nails. This isn't so straightforward in other niches. Let's use travel as an example. Travel is a niche where I often find people making this really critical mistake. They'll put up a picture of a beautiful destination, and a lot of destinations look similar, right? Beaches in the Caribbean, beaches in the Mediterranean. Maybe somebody who's been to both will automatically recognize the difference. But somebody who's planning a trip, which is generally the user intent of the Pinterest reader, planning stages, ideas, inspiration, they're excited, they might not automatically recognize the difference in location. And then we put the name of the place across the pin. And sure, if it is a really, really popular, well-known destination like Mexico, then people see the word Mexico, they know what it means, they immediately understand the message that the pin is conveying is easy. In travel, all the time, I see people putting obscure, not well-known names of places on pins. And this is a huge issue because I might be planning a vacation to the Caribbean and I might love the way that this place looks. And I might be very enticed to click on the pin and find out more about the place. But if it's right next to another pin on the screen, which it will be, that is more immediately understandable for me, then I'm more likely to click on the other one that my brain already processes and knows more about it just from looking at it. So even though I might be open to going anywhere in the Caribbean, I already know that I'm probably not going to go to the Mediterranean when I'm planning, okay? When I see two beaches that are similar on the screen right in front of me, and I immediately understand, Mexico, because that's really easy. My brain understands it. And then the other pin, the beautiful beach pin also, is titled with an obscure place name that I don't immediately know. I'm more likely to interact with the one that I understand more about. And so with places, we see that the names of these places can really limit engagement on the pins. We also see this in ethnic food. Ethnic food. If you are pinning in English for an English-speaking audience, you need to make sure that you're putting the English word for whatever it is that you want your end user to create on the pin, because the end user doesn't speak generally. If you're pinning in English for an English audience, they don't speak Spanish or Thai, and they don't know what the picture of the food is of. And so if there is a fantastic some kind of fantastic curry recipe. And it is pictured on the screen right next to a similar looking fantastic curry recipe. And the words, easy Thai yellow curry are on one of those images. And the name on the other image is, less less simple, less immediately understandable, then people are going to engage with the one they understand. So that is a really, really important consideration when it comes to the words in your text overlay. Okay, the next thing that I want you to consider when you are putting text overlay on your pins for easy understanding and clicking is the contrast between the words and the image. And contrast means, does the image, the background behind the words, make them difficult to process on a quick scroll? So here with this image, you can see that the words are right over top of the image. They're not that hard to read because the image is light and the words are dark. These ones, in my opinion, are easier to read, where there's a plain color behind the words and there's a lot of contrast between the words and the image. If we scroll down, we'll probably find one that I think is a poor example. Well, maybe we won't, because sometimes the poor examples don't get into the feed because people don't engage with them. I personally think this is harder to read than the other ones that we looked at. I think that this is difficult to read. 50 stunning Christmas nail designs right over top of the hand like this. I think if you are going to create an image like this, I would use a much heavier font weight so that there's more contrast between the image and the picture. It has to compete with this one, and that's an important thing to remember. When you are putting your titles on your pins, take the time to craft great headlines. We go over this a lot more in depth in the title traffic hacks portion of the course. But it's really important. If we're looking at one pin that says easy Christmas nail designs and another one that just says Christmas nail ideas, people are generally going to interact with the one that is more interesting, that is more for them. So on that note, use a qualifier on your pins. Back to travel. If you are writing an article about a week in Cancun, the best itinerary for a week in Cancun, say on the pin who that's for. Is it the perfect week in Cancun for a couple, for a single person, for a family with kids, for a girls' trip? Who is the person that this is for? A qualifier can be a subheading. It can also be different than a subheading. So consider the use of a subheading to give more information about what's available on the other side of the pin. For an example, a qualifier and a subheading would be something like the best way to spend a week in Cancun for couples, and then a subheading can be extra information to seal the click beyond what you've already shared, like for under $3,000. And that part, for under $3,000, you'd make that smaller. Or you could write something like, if we've got the best way to spend a week in Cancun for couples, you could put everything from honeymoon to baby moon ideas. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's a good blog post, because I think that the people looking for a honeymoon might not be the same people as who are looking for a baby moon, right? They're a different user, but that's an example of a subheading that you could add. My next tip for creating clickable images is to zoom in on your image. People are here to see the image, to understand the image immediately, and one of the easiest to fix mistakes that I see people making on Pinterest all the time is being far away from their image, tiny little bits of visual information on the screen, and then right next to it, there's a pin where the image is nice and cropped close, and people understand the cropped close image faster. The next thing that I would like you to consider when it comes to how to make your pins more clickable is to make your images brighter. Again, just like tiny images, dark images are hard to process quickly, and brighter images are often the winning images on the platform. Lastly, while you're experimenting with making your images the most clickable, experiment with a call to action. Don't be afraid to put things like click for more right on your pin with an arrow if you want. There's always ways to include a call to action on your pin. Over time, if you create a lot of pins, you'll probably learn what performs best as far as clicks go for your audience. Make sure that you're taking time to go into your Pinterest analytics to sort by top pins by outbound clicks, to open all of those pins in a separate tab, and to compare all of those pins side by side and ask yourself, what about this pin makes it so clickable? Keep a list over time of your top most clickable pins and continue to reuse the elements of that pin that made it clickable over and over again.